Maya-chan pressed her face against the cold glass of her bedroom window, watching the night sky explode in colors she had never seen before. Green and purple lights danced across the darkness, but she felt the vibrations through the glass rather than heard the sounds that surely accompanied such a spectacle. At 16, Maya had been deaf since birth, but she experienced the world through touch, sight, and an intuition that often surprised those around her. The lights grew brighter, and suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled. Books fell from her shelves, and her desk lamp swayed dangerously. Maya grabbed onto her windowsill as the trembling intensified. In the distance, beyond the wheat fields that surrounded her family's farm in rural Kansas, something massive crashed into the earth with such force that the impact sent shockwaves through the foundation of their old farmhouse. Her parents, David and Sarah Chun, burst into her room moments later. Her mother's face was pale with worry, and her father clutched a flashlight with shaking hands. They had learned sign language when Maya was young, and her mother's hands moved quickly as she signed, asking if Maya was hurt. Maya shook her head and pointed toward the fields where an orange glow now flickered against the night sky. The three of them stood together at the window, watching smoke rise in thick columns for what appeared to be a crater nearly a mile away. David reached for his phone to call the authorities, but the device showed no signal. The power in their house flickered and died, plunging them into darkness illuminated only by the strange glow from the crash site. Maya felt drawn to that distant light in a way she couldn't explain. While her parents discussed what to do in hushed tones, she studied the crater through a pair of old binoculars her grandfather had left behind. Something moved within the orange glow, something large and powerful that made her heart race with both fear and fascination. The next morning brought chaos to their quiet farming community. Military vehicles rolled down the dirt roads, and helicopters circled overhead like mechanical vultures. Soldiers in hazmat suits established a perimeter around the crash site, keeping curious locals at a safe distance. Maya and her parents joined their neighbors at the edge of the restricted zone, everyone craning their necks to catch a glimpse of what had fallen from the sky. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, a xenobiologist from the nearby university, arrived with a team of scientists. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and intelligent green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. When she learned that the Chun family lived closest to the crash site, she approached them for information about what they had witnessed. Maya watched Dr. Warren's lips carefully as she spoke to her parents, picking up enough to understand that something unprecedented had happened. The scientist's expression grew more serious when Maya's mother explained that their daughter was deaf but had seemed particularly affected by the crash. Dr. Warren turned to Maya with curious eyes and asked through her mother's translation if she had felt anything unusual. Through sign language, Maya described the vibrations she had experienced, not just from the impact, but something else, something that had seemed to call to her from within the crater. Dr. Warren's eyebrows rose with interest, and she made several notes in a small tablet before thanking the family and moving on to interview other witnesses. Over the next 3 days, the military presence only increased. Maya learned from her neighbors that something alive had been found in the crater, something that the scientists were calling an extraterrestrial life form. The creature was being studied in a temporary research facility that had been constructed near the crash site, but all attempts to communicate with or understand it had failed. Maya's father, who worked part-time as a mechanic for the local sheriff's department, brought home disturbing reports each evening. The creature was massive, resembling a dragon from ancient legends, but with features that clearly marked it as not of this world. Its scales shimmered with an iridescent quality that seemed to shift between deep blue and silver, and its eyes glowed with an inner light that both fascinated and terrified those who looked into them. Most troubling of all, the creature had proven to be extremely aggressive. It had already injured 3 researchers who had gotten too close, and its powerful tail had damaged expensive equipment. The military was growing impatient with the scientific approach, and was beginning to discuss more extreme measures for dealing with what they saw as a potential threat. Maya found herself thinking about the creature constantly. In her dreams, she saw those glowing eyes and felt a strange sense of connection that she couldn't understand or explain to anyone else. The vibrations she had felt in the night of the crash seemed to echo in her memory, as if they carried some kind of message that only she could receive. On the fourth day after the crash, Maya made a decision that would change everything. While her parents were in town getting supplies and discussing the situation with their neighbors, she slipped away from the house and made her way across the fields toward the restricted area. Her knowledge of the land from years of exploring gave her an advantage in avoiding the military patrols, and she moved carefully through the tall grass and irrigation ditches. As she drew closer to the research facility, Maya could feel something calling to her more strongly than ever. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced before, a kind of rhythmic pulsing that seemed to resonate in her chest and behind her eyes. She crept to the edge of the temporary fence that surrounded the site and peered through the chain links at the structure that housed the creature. The building was nothing more than a large metal shed, but it was surrounded by monitoring equipment and guarded by soldiers who looked nervous and tired. Maya could see Dr. Warren through one of the windows, speaking animatedly with military officials while gesturing toward readings on various instruments. The scientist's face showed a mixture of excitement and frustration that Maya recognized from her own experiences when trying to communicate something important that others couldn't understand. Maya circled the perimeter carefully, looking for a way to get closer to the building. The pulsing sensation grew stronger with each step, and she began to realize that it seemed to be coming from the direction of the creature itself. Could the dragon be trying to communicate? Was it possible that the vibrations she felt were some form of language that others couldn't perceive? Near the back of the facility, Maya discovered a drainage pipe that ran under the fence and emerged near a supply shed close to the main building. The pipe was narrow and filled with muddy water from recent rains, but it was large enough for her to crawl through if she was careful. Taking a deep breath, Maya lowered herself into the cold water and began to make her way under the fence. The journey through the pipe was longer and more difficult than she had expected. The water soaked through her clothes, and the metal walls pressed in on her from all sides. But the pulsing sensation continued to guide her forward, growing stronger as she approached her destination. When she finally emerged on the other side, muddy and exhausted, Maya found herself in a storage area filled with scientific equipment and supplies. She could hear footsteps and voices nearby, but they seemed distant and muffled. Maya crept between stacks of boxes and equipment until she reached a small window that looked into the main research area. What she saw through that window took her breath away and confirmed everything she had been feeling since the night of the crash. The creature was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. It stood nearly 15 feet tall, with a body that combined the raw power of a prehistoric predator with an alien grace that spoke of intelligence far beyond anything found on Earth. Its scales did indeed shimmer between blue and silver, but up close Maya could see that they also contained flecks of gold and deep purple that seemed to move and shift like living metal. The dragon's head was large and noble, with eyes that glowed with an inner light that reminded Maya of distant stars. But what struck her most was the expression in those eyes. This was not the mindless rage of a wild animal, but the focused anger and frustration of an intelligent being that found itself trapped and unable to communicate with its captors. As Maya watched, Dr. Warren approached the creature's enclosure with a tablet in her hands, trying once again to establish some form of communication. The dragon watched her carefully, but made no move to respond to the symbols and sounds the scientist presented. Its tail moved restlessly, and Maya could see the tension in every line of its powerful body. Suddenly, the dragon's head turned in Maya's direction. Those glowing eyes met hers through the window, and the pulsing sensation that had been growing stronger all day suddenly intensified into something like a voice inside her mind. Not words exactly, but concepts and emotions that she could understand as clearly as if someone had spoken them aloud. The dragon was trying to tell her something about home, about a terrible war among the stars, and about a desperate escape that had brought it crashing to Earth. Maya felt its loneliness and fear, but also its fierce pride and determination to survive. Most importantly, she sensed that the creature recognized her as someone who could understand its unique form of communication, someone who might be able to help it find a way home. Maya pressed her hand against the window, and the dragon took a step closer to its side of the enclosure. The connection between them grew stronger, and Maya began to understand that the creature's aggressive behavior toward the researchers was not born of malice, but of desperation. It was injured and far from home, surrounded by beings it couldn't communicate with, and who saw it as either a threat or a specimen to be studied. The moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching the storage area. Maya quickly ducked down behind a stack of boxes as two soldiers walked past, discussing the latest failed attempt to sedate the creature for a more thorough examination. Their conversation made it clear that patience was running out, and more extreme measures were being considered for the next day. Maya knew she had to act quickly. The dragon needed help, and she might be the only person who could provide it. As she made her way back through the drainage pipe and across the fields to her family's farm, Maya's mind raced with plans and possibilities. She had established contact with an alien intelligence, but now she had to figure out how to save it before the military decided that the risk it posed was too great to allow it to live. That night, as her parents slept, Maya sat at her desk and tried to process everything she had experienced. The pulsing communication from the dragon continued even at this distance, fainter but still present, like a distant heartbeat that only she could feel. She began to sketch what she had seen, trying to capture not just the creature's physical appearance, but the intelligence and emotion she had witnessed in its glowing eyes. Maya realized that her deafness, which had often made her feel isolated from the world around her, might actually be the key to saving this magnificent being. The dragon's method of communication bypassed sound entirely, relying instead on some form of direct mental or emotional contact that her brain was uniquely equipped to receive and interpret. As dawn approached, Maya made her decision. She would return to the facility, but this time she wouldn't just observe. She would find a way to reach the dragon directly and establish the communication that Dr. Warren and her team had been unable to achieve. It was dangerous, possibly even suicidal, but Maya felt certain that the creature needed her help and that she was the only one who could provide it. The next phase of Maya's incredible journey was about to begin, and with it, the first real communication between humans and an intelligence from beyond the stars. What she learned from the dragon would challenge everything she thought she knew about the universe and her place in it, while the bond she formed with the alien warrior would forever change both of their destinies. Maya waited until the early morning hours when the research facility would have the smallest number of guards on duty. She had spent the previous day watching the patrol patterns from a distance and had identified a 15-minute window when the back section of the compound would be less heavily monitored. Armed with this knowledge and a backpack containing water, protein bars, and a first aid kit, she made her second journey through the drainage pipe beneath the fence. This time, Maya had a clear plan. Instead of just observing, she intended to make direct contact with the dragon and establish the communication link that seemed to exist between them. The pulsing sensation had continued throughout the night, sometimes stronger and sometimes fainter, but always present like a beacon calling her back to the creature's side. The storage area was empty when she emerged from the pipe, but Maya could hear more activity in the main research facility than there had been during her first visit. Voices carried through the walls, some speaking in urgent tones that suggested something significant was happening. Maya crept closer to the building and positioned herself near a ventilation grate where she could hear the conversation inside. Dr. Warren was arguing with Colonel Hayes, the military officer in charge of the operation. Maya couldn't hear every word, but she caught enough to understand that the colonel wanted to attempt a forced sedation of the creature that morning, despite Dr. Warren's protest that such an action could prove fatal to their subject. The scientist was pleading for more time to establish communication, but the military's patience had clearly run out. Maya's heart raced as she realized how little time she had left. If the military proceeded with their plan, the dragon might be killed or so heavily drugged that any chance of meaningful contact would be lost forever. She had to reach the creature now, before it was too late. Moving carefully around the building, Maya found a maintenance door that had been left slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see into the main research area where the dragon was being held. The creature was restless, pacing back and forth in its enclosure with movements that spoke of growing agitation. Its scales seemed to be shifting color more rapidly than before, cycling through deep blues and silvers with flashes of angry red that Maya had not seen during her first visit. The enclosure itself was a reinforced glass and steel structure that looked more like a prison than a research facility. Banks of monitoring equipment surrounded it, recording every movement and vital sign of the creature within. Scientists and technicians moved around the perimeter, preparing what Maya assumed were the sedation devices that Colonel Hayes intended to use. Maya slipped through the door and found herself in a maze of equipment and temporary partitions. She moved carefully toward the enclosure, staying low and using the machinery as cover. The pulsing sensation that connected her to the dragon grew stronger with each step, and she began to sense more complex emotions from the creature. Along with the fear and frustration she had detected before, Maya now felt a deep sadness and a longing for something far away. As she drew closer, Maya began to understand that the dragon was not just communicating with her, but actually sharing fragments of its memories. Images flashed through her mind of a world unlike Earth, where crystal cities stretched toward purple skies, and beings like the dragon soared between floating islands connected by bridges of light. She saw great wars fought among the stars, with fleets of ships carrying warriors into battles that determined the fate of entire civilizations. The dragon had been a soldier in one of those wars, Maya realized. It had fought bravely alongside others of its kind against an enemy that threatened everything they held dear. But something had gone wrong during a crucial battle, and the creature had been forced to flee through space in a damaged ship that eventually brought it crashing to Earth. Maya reached the edge of the enclosure and pressed her hand against the reinforced glass. The dragon immediately turned toward her, its glowing eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. The connection between them strengthened dramatically, and Maya felt as if she was looking directly into the mind of an alien intelligence that was both utterly foreign and somehow familiar. Through their shared mental link, the dragon communicated its name to Maya, though the concept was so complex and layered with meaning that she could only approximate it with human sounds. She began to think of the creature as Zephyr, which seemed to capture some of the essence of its identity as a being that moved between worlds like the wind moves between mountains. Zephyr shared more of its story with Maya through the continuing flow of images and emotions. The war it had been fighting was not just a conflict between armies, but a struggle for the survival of an entire way of life. The enemy was a species that consumed other worlds and civilizations, leaving nothing behind but empty space and dead planets. Zephyr's people had been losing the war, falling back system by system as their enemies advanced across the galaxy. The battle that had led to Zephyr's crash on Earth had been a desperate attempt to strike at the heart of the enemy's advanced fleet. Zephyr and a small group of elite warriors had piloted their ships directly into the enemy formation, hoping to destroy a command vessel that was coordinating the attack on their homeworld. The mission had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Most of Zephyr's companions had been killed, and Zephyr itself had barely escaped in a damaged ship that was failing even as it fled through space. Maya felt Zephyr's grief for its fallen comrades, and its frustration at being trapped on a primitive world while its people continued to fight for their lives among the stars. The dragon's aggressive behavior toward the human researchers now made perfect sense. It wasn't just afraid or confused. It was desperate to return home and rejoin the battle that would determine whether its civilization lived or died. But Maya also sensed something else in Zephyr's thoughts, something that gave her hope. The dragon was not just a warrior. It was also a being capable of deep compassion and loyalty. In the images it shared with her, Maya saw Zephyr caring for wounded companions and protecting civilians during evacuations from threatened worlds. This was not a monster, despite its fearsome appearance, but a noble creature driven by duty and love for its people. The connection between them was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Maya quickly moved away from the enclosure and hid behind a bank of monitoring equipment as Dr. Warren entered the research area with two technicians. The scientist looked tired and frustrated, but she was still carrying her tablet and making notes as she observed Zephyr's behavior. Maya watched as Dr. Warren approached the enclosure and began another attempt at communication. The scientist played various sounds through speakers, displayed mathematical sequences on screens, and even tried simple sign language gestures that Maya recognized from her own experience. But Zephyr showed no response to any of these efforts, instead continuing to pace restlessly around its confined space. From her hiding place, Maya could see the problem clearly. Dr. Warren was trying to communicate through conventional methods that required the use of physical senses and learned languages. But Zephyr's method of communication was entirely different, operating on a level of direct mental contact that bypassed the need for sound, sight, or symbolic representation. Maya realized that she had to act now, before the military arrived to implement their sedation plan. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out from behind the equipment and walked directly toward Dr. Warren and the enclosure. The scientist turned in surprise, her eyes widening as she recognized the teenage girl who had no business being in a classified research facility. Before Dr. Warren could call for security, Maya held up her hands and began signing rapidly, explaining who she was and why she was there. The scientist had encountered sign language before in her work with disabled students, and while she wasn't fluent, she could understand enough of Maya's communication to realize that the girl was claiming to have established contact with the creature. Maya approached the enclosure and placed her hand on the glass again. Immediately, Zephyr moved toward her side of the barrier, and the dragon's agitation seemed to decrease noticeably. Maya could feel the creature's relief at her return, and she began to receive new images and emotions through their mental link. Dr. Warren watched in amazement as the behavior of the most dangerous creature she had ever encountered changed completely in response to the presence of a deaf teenager. Through sign language and simple gestures, Maya began to communicate with Dr. Warren about what she had learned from Zephyr. She explained that the creature was not an animal, but an intelligent being from another world, a soldier who had been fighting in a war among the stars and had crashed on Earth while fleeing from a battle. Maya described the mental communication link that had formed between them and her growing understanding of Zephyr's situation. Dr. Warren listened with growing excitement as Maya revealed information about the creature that months of conventional research had failed to uncover. The scientist began asking questions, which Maya then posed to Zephyr through their mental connection. The responses came in the form of images and emotional concepts that Maya had to translate into human language, but gradually a more complete picture of Zephyr's origins and circumstances began to emerge. The communication session was interrupted by the arrival of Colonel Hayes and a team of military personnel carrying sedation equipment. The colonel was clearly angry to find an unauthorized civilian in his research facility, and he ordered his men to remove Maya immediately. But Dr. Warren stepped between them, insisting that Maya had achieved the breakthrough in communication that they had been seeking. Colonel Hayes was skeptical of claims about mental telepathy with an alien creature, but he couldn't deny that the dragon's behavior had changed dramatically since Maya's arrival. Where Zephyr had previously been aggressive and uncooperative, it now remained calm and focused, watching the interaction between the humans with obvious intelligence. The colonel agreed to postpone the sedation for 1 hour, while Maya demonstrated her claimed ability to communicate with the creature. Maya knew this might be her only chance to save Zephyr. Working quickly through her mental link with the dragon, she began to gather specific information that would prove the reality of their communication to the skeptical military personnel. Zephyr shared technical details about its damaged spacecraft, which was buried deep in the impact crater and had not yet been fully excavated by the human teams. Through Maya's translation, Zephyr described the location of critical components within the wreckage and explained how certain systems could be reactivated to provide evidence of advanced alien technology. The dragon also shared mathematical concepts and star charts that showed its route to Earth and the location of its home world relative to human astronomical knowledge. Dr. Warren frantically recorded everything Maya reported, cross-referencing the information with data from the crash site and existing scientific observations. Within the hour, enough of Zephyr's claims had been verified to convince even Colonel Hayes that genuine communication was taking place. The sedation plan was canceled, and Maya found herself appointed as the official human liaison to the first confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence. But Maya knew that establishing communication was only the first step in a much larger challenge. Zephyr was still trapped on Earth while its people fought for survival among the stars. The Dragon ship was too damaged to be repaired with human technology, and even if it could be fixed, Zephyr's injuries from the crash were more severe than the medical team had realized. Through their mental link, Maya could sense the creature's growing weakness and knew that time was running out. The real test of the bond between Maya and Zephyr was about to begin. Together, they would have to find a way to heal the wounded dragon and get it back to the war that was raging among distant stars. Maya's unique ability to communicate with alien intelligence had saved Zephyr from the sedation chamber, but now she would need to become something more than just a translator. She would need to become the bridge between two worlds and the key to a friendship that could change the course of an interstellar war. As the day progressed, and more officials arrived to witness the historic first contact with alien intelligence, Maya remained at Zephyr's side, their mental connection growing stronger with each passing hour. The dragon shared more of its culture and history with her, while Maya explained human civilization and Earth's place in the galaxy. Through their growing friendship, both beings began to understand that they had found something precious and rare, true understanding between species separated by countless light years of space and millions of years of evolution. The foundation of trust was being built, but greater challenges lay ahead as Maya and Zephyr worked together to find a way to bridge the gap between Earth's technology and the advanced science needed to return a warrior to its home among the stars. The weeks that followed Maya's initial contact with Zephyr transformed the small Kansas farming community into the center of the most important scientific discovery in human history. Government officials, scientists, and military personnel from around the world converged on the research facility, all eager to study the first confirmed alien intelligence. But through it all, Maya remained the only human capable of true communication with the magnificent dragon warrior. Maya's daily routine changed dramatically as she found herself spending most of her time at the facility, serving as translator and advocate for Zephyr. Her parents, initially frightened by their daughter's involvement in such a dangerous situation, gradually came to understand the historic importance of her unique gift. They moved into temporary housing near the research site, so Maya could maintain her connection with Zephyr while still having their support and protection. Dr. Warren became Maya's mentor and protector within the scientific community, teaching her about xenobiology and helping her understand the complex political dynamics surrounding the first contact situation. The scientist was fascinated by Maya's ability to communicate directly with Zephyr's mind and worked tirelessly to develop technological methods that might allow other humans to achieve similar contact. But despite months of effort, Maya remained the sole bridge between humanity and the alien intelligence. Through her growing friendship with Zephyr, Maya learned more about the dragon species and their ongoing war among the stars. The dragon warriors, known as the Kethvar in their own language, were an ancient race that had evolved on a world of floating crystal cities and endless skies. They possessed technology that combined organic and mechanical elements in ways that human science could barely comprehend, and their culture was built around concepts of honor, duty, and protection of the innocent. The enemy they fought was a species called the Void Devourers, creatures of pure hunger that consumed entire worlds and left nothing but darkness in their wake. The war had been raging for thousands of years, with the Kethvar and their allies slowly losing ground as the Devourers spread across the galaxy like a plague. Zephyr's desperate mission to Earth had been part of a last-ditch effort to strike a crucial blow against the enemy's advance forces. As Maya's understanding of Zephyr's situation deepened, she became increasingly determined to help the dragon return home. Through their mental link, she could feel Zephyr's growing desperation as the creature sensed the passage of time and worried about the fate of its people. The dragon's physical condition was also deteriorating despite the best efforts of human medical science. Its alien physiology required elements and energy sources that didn't exist on Earth, and Zephyr was slowly dying from a combination of its crash injuries and environmental incompatibility. Maya convinced Dr. Warren and the research team to focus their efforts on understanding Zephyr's damaged spacecraft, which had been excavated from the crash crater and transported to a secure facility for study. The ship was unlike anything in human experience, built from materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states while maintaining incredible strength and durability. Its power source was a miniature star contained within crystalline matrices that human scientists could observe but not reproduce. Working with Zephyr through their mental connection, Maya began to understand the basic principles behind the ship's operation. The vessel didn't just travel through space. It moved through dimensions that existed between the normal layers of reality, allowing it to cover vast distances in relatively short periods of time. But the dimensional drive had been severely damaged in the crash, and its repair would require materials and knowledge that were far beyond current human capabilities. The breakthrough came when Maya suggested that instead of trying to repair Zephyr's ship with human technology, they should focus on helping the dragon heal enough to survive until rescue arrived. Through their mental link, Zephyr revealed that before the crash, it had sent out a distress signal that should eventually be detected by other Kethvar ships. The problem was that the signal would take months or even years to reach friendly forces, and Zephyr's condition was deteriorating too rapidly for such a long wait. Maya proposed a radical solution that drew on her growing understanding of both human and Kethvar technology. If they couldn't repair the dimensional drive, perhaps they could amplify Zephyr's distress signal using Earth's existing satellite and radio telescope networks. The Dragon's communication technology operated on frequencies and principles that were compatible with human electronics, and Maya believed that with the right modifications, they could broadcast a signal strong enough to reach Zephyr's allies across interstellar distances. Dr. Warren was skeptical of the plan, but she couldn't argue with the logic behind Maya's proposal. The research team began working around the clock to modify existing communication equipment based on specifications that Zephyr provided through Maya's translations. The project required cooperation between government agencies, private corporations, and international space organizations, all working toward the common goal of establishing contact with an alien civilization. As the months passed and the signal amplification project progressed. Maya's bond with Zephyr deepened into something that transcended the simple relationship between human and alien. They shared thoughts, emotions, and experiences across the barriers of species and evolution, becoming true friends despite their vastly different origins. Maya began to understand concepts of honor and duty that were central to Kethvar culture, while Zephyr gained insight into human creativity and determination. The dragon taught Maya about the beauty of its home world, sharing mental images of crystal cities that floated among the clouds and warriors who soared through purple skies on wings of living metal. Maya, in turn, showed Zephyr the wonders of Earth through her own experiences, from sunrise over Kansas wheat fields to the ocean waves she had seen only in pictures. Their friendship became a bridge between worlds, proving that intelligence and compassion could overcome any barrier. Maya also learned that Zephyr's species had never encountered beings like humans before. The Kethvar had fought alongside various alien races in their war against the Void Devourers, but most of their allies were energy-based life forms or hive minds that communicated through entirely different methods. Maya's ability to form a mental link with Zephyr was unique even by Kethvar standards, suggesting that humans possessed latent psychic abilities that had never been properly developed or understood. The implications of this discovery excited Dr. Warren and the research team, who began studying Maya's brain patterns during her communication sessions with Zephyr. They found unusual activity in regions associated with intuition and emotional processing, patterns that seemed to resonate with electromagnetic fields generated by the dragon's neural system. The scientists theorized that Maya's deafness might have enhanced her sensitivity to these fields, allowing her to perceive and respond to forms of communication that hearing individuals might miss. The signal amplification project reached completion nearly a year after Zephyr's crash on Earth. The modified equipment combined human satellite technology with Kethvar communication principles, creating a transmission system capable of broadcasting across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Maya and Zephyr worked together to compose a message that included the dragon's identity, location, and current condition, along with detailed information about Earth and its inhabitants. The moment of transmission was tense with anticipation as scientists, military personnel, and government officials gathered to witness humanity's first deliberate attempt to contact alien intelligence. Maya stood beside Zephyr's enclosure, their mental link stronger than ever as the dragon prepared to call out across the cosmos to its distant allies. When the signal began broadcasting, Maya felt the power of it through her connection with Zephyr, a pulse of hope and determination that reached toward the stars. Days passed with no response, then weeks. Some officials began to suggest that the project had failed, that the signal was either too weak to reach its destination or that there were no Kethvar ships close enough to receive it. But Maya and Zephyr maintained their faith, knowing that interstellar distances meant that even successful communication would require patience beyond normal human experience. The response came 3 months after the initial transmission, detected first by radio telescopes in Australia and confirmed by facilities around the world. The signal was clearly artificial, containing mathematical sequences and harmonic patterns that matched Kethvar communication protocols. Maya felt Zephyr's joy and relief through their mental link as the dragon recognized the approach vectors and identification codes of a rescue fleet from its homeworld. The arrival of the Kethvar ships marked the beginning of a new era for both humanity and the dragon warriors. 3 magnificent vessels appeared in Earth's sky, their crystalline hulls reflecting sunlight in rainbow patterns that painted the clouds with impossible colors. The ships were works of art as much as they were instruments of war, beautiful and terrible in their alien perfection. Maya served as the primary translator during the first official contact between human governments and the Kethvar rescue fleet. Through her mental link with Zephyr and the ship commanders, she facilitated discussions that laid the groundwork for an alliance between Earth and the Dragon Warriors. The Kethvar were grateful for humanity's care of their injured comrade and impressed by the ingenuity that had made the rescue possible. In recognition of her unique role in establishing contact between the species, the Kethvar offered Maya the highest honor their culture could bestow on a non-warrior: the chance to accompany Zephyr home and witness the crystal cities of the dragon world. Maya's parents were initially resistant to the idea of their daughter traveling to alien worlds, but they ultimately recognized that she had found her true calling as a bridge between civilizations. Dr. Warren volunteered to accompany Maya as humanity's first ambassador to the Kethvar, and together they prepared for a journey that would take them beyond the solar system to worlds that existed only in dreams and imagination. The Kethvar provided them with biological modifications that would allow them to survive in alien environments, while Maya worked with Zephyr to learn the basic protocols of dragon society. The departure was bittersweet as Maya said goodbye to her family and the Kansas farm that had been her world for 16 years. But the mental link she shared with Zephyr had shown her wonders beyond Earth's atmosphere, and she knew that her destiny lay among the stars. As the Kethvar ships lifted off from Earth, carrying Maya and Dr. Warren toward adventures in distant galaxies, the bond between human and dragon that had begun with a crash in a wheat field became the foundation for an alliance that would change the course of the war among the stars. Maya's journey with Zephyr had proven that true communication transcends species, worlds, and the vast distances between the stars. Her deafness, which had once made her feel isolated from her own kind, had become the key to unlocking friendship with an alien intelligence and opening doorways to worlds beyond imagination. The girl who couldn't hear the sounds of Earth became the voice that carried humanity's message to the cosmos, and the bridge that connected two civilizations in their fight against the darkness that threatened to consume the galaxy. Years later, when human children learned about the first contact with alien intelligence, they would hear the story of Maya Chun and Zephyr, the deaf girl, and the dragon warrior who proved that understanding could overcome any barrier. Their friendship became legend, but more importantly, it became hope for a universe where different species could stand together against the forces that sought to destroy all life and light. The bond they forged in a research facility in Kansas became the cornerstone of an interstellar alliance that would echo through the ages, a testament to the power of compassion and the courage to reach across the void between worlds.